In this video, we'll follow a series of fun, simple short stories that introduce new English words in context. Each story is crafted to help you learn words naturally as you immerse yourself in the journey of the characters. By the end, you'll feel more confident using new words in your daily English.
A fun day at the market. Chapter 1: A Day in the Market. On a sunny Saturday morning, Emily decided to visit the local market in her neighborhood. She loved the market because it was always full of colors, sounds, and the fresh smell of fruits and flowers. Emily had her shopping list in hand. She needed to buy some fresh fruits, vegetables, and a few other treats for the weekend. As she walked through the market, she saw a stall with a big sign that read, "Fresh and ripe fruits." Emily approached the stall and smiled at the friendly vendor. "Good morning," she greeted him. "Your apples look so fresh. How much are they?" The vendor, an older man with a cheerful smile, replied, "Good morning. These apples are only $2 per pound. They're freshly picked this morning. Would you like to try one?" Emily took a bite of a sample apple and tasted the sweetness right away. "This is delicious. I'll take a pound, please," she said. She felt happy as she placed the apples in her bag, knowing they would be perfect for her weekend snacks. Next, Emily spotted a stall selling beautiful, green vegetables. She remembered that she needed to buy spinach for the pasta recipe she wanted to try. She walked up to the stall and asked the vendor, "Do you have any fresh spinach?" "Yes, we do," the vendor replied, showing her a big basket filled with bright green spinach leaves. "This spinach is very fresh and perfect for cooking." Emily picked out a small bunch and added it to her bag. "Thank you. How much for the spinach?" she asked politely. "It's only $1 for the bunch," the vendor said. Emily paid and continued walking through the market, her bag getting heavier with each purchase. She loved chatting with the vendors and asking for their recommendations. She noticed a stall selling bread and decided to buy a fresh loaf for her breakfast. As she walked toward the bread stall, Emily thought about how much she was learning just by talking to people at the market. She was practicing words like fresh, ripe, and buy. Each conversation made her feel more confident in using new English words. After her shopping, Emily left the market with a full bag and a big smile. She couldn't wait to use the fresh ingredients she had bought. She felt proud of herself for practicing her English and learning new words while enjoying her day at the market. Chapter 2: The Lost Phone. That afternoon, Emily met her friend Jake at the park. They had planned to enjoy a relaxing day outdoors, catching up and sharing stories about their week. Jake had recently started a new job, and Emily couldn't wait to hear all about it. As they strolled through the park, admiring the tall trees and the kids playing nearby, Jake suddenly stopped and looked around, his face worried. "What's wrong, Jake?" Emily asked, noticing his worried expression. "I think I lost my phone," Jake said, patting his pockets and looking a little panicked. "I had it when I left home, but now, it's gone." "Oh no!" Emily exclaimed. "Let's retrace our steps. We might find it if we go back and look carefully." The two friends started retracing their steps, going back to where they had entered the park. Along the way, they asked people if they had seen a lost phone. Emily decided to take charge, asking each passerby politely. "Excuse me," she said to a couple sitting on a nearby bench. "Have you seen a black phone around here?" The couple shook their heads and replied, "Sorry, we haven't seen one. Good luck finding it." They thanked the couple and continued searching. As they walked, Jake was clearly nervous. He kept muttering, "I hope it's still there." My whole life is on that phone. Seeing Jake's worry, Emily tried to stay positive. Don't worry, Jake. We'll find it. It must be somewhere nearby. After a while, they reached a small cafe where they had stopped earlier for a quick drink. Emily walked up to the cafe counter and asked the barista, "Hi. My friend Jake may have left his phone here. Have you seen it?" The barista thought for a moment and nodded. "Yes, actually. A customer found a phone and handed it to us. Let me check if it's yours." She went behind the counter and returned holding a black phone. Jake's face lit up as he recognized it immediately. "Yes, that's my phone. Thank you so much," Jake said, looking visibly relieved. Emily smiled and laughed. "See, Jake? I told you we'd find it. Sometimes you just need a little hope and patience." Jake took his phone, feeling grateful and relieved. "Thank you, Emily. I don't know what I'd do without you." "No problem, Jake. This was a good adventure, and we learned some new words along the way," Emily replied, proud of their teamwork. As they left the cafe, Jake couldn't stop thanking Emily for her help. He was grateful to have such a good friend who stayed calm and helped him solve the problem. They laughed about the day's adventure and enjoyed the rest of their time together, feeling closer than ever. In this chapter, we practiced words related to finding lost items and asking for help, such as lost, retrace, nervous, and relieved. Practicing these words in a real-life situation, like finding a lost item, can help you feel more comfortable and prepared in English. Chapter 3: Baking Day with Grandma. The next day, Emily woke up to the delicious smell of baking coming from the kitchen. Her grandmother was visiting for the weekend, and Emily knew exactly what that meant: baking day. She loved spending time with her grandma in the kitchen, and today they planned to make chocolate chip cookies, one of her favorite treats. "Good morning, Grandma!" Emily greeted her with a big hug. "It smells amazing in here." "Good morning, Emily," Grandma replied with a warm smile. "I thought we'd start baking some cookies early today. Are you ready to help?" "Of course," Emily said eagerly, grabbing an apron and tying it around her waist. She looked around the kitchen, noticing all the ingredients laid out on the counter: flour, sugar, butter, eggs, chocolate chips, and more. "Let's start with the basics," Grandma said, handing Emily a large mixing bowl. "First, we need to mix the dry ingredients. That's the flour, baking soda, and a pinch of salt." Emily carefully measured each ingredient and added them to the bowl. "So, the flour gives the cookies their shape, right?" she asked. "Exactly," Grandma nodded. "And the baking soda helps the cookies rise and become light and fluffy." Emily loved learning these little details. She was learning new vocabulary words like ingredients mixing and fluffy. She felt like a real baker. Once they finished with the dry ingredients, Grandma said, "Now let's move on to the wet ingredients. We'll need to cream together the butter and sugar until it's nice and smooth." Emily took the wooden spoon and started stirring the butter and sugar together. It was hard work, but she enjoyed the challenge. As she stirred, Grandma added an egg and a dash of vanilla extract, making the mixture smell even better. "This is the fun part," Grandma said, smiling. "Now we add the chocolate chips. Go ahead and pour them in." Emily poured a generous amount of chocolate chips into the bowl, making sure there were plenty in every cookie. "I can't wait to taste these," she said, her mouth watering just thinking about it. With the dough ready, They began shaping small balls and placing them on the baking tray. "Remember to leave some space between each one," Grandma advised. "They'll spread out when they bake, so we don't want them to stick together." Emily carefully placed each ball of dough onto the tray, trying to make them all the same size. She learned new words like spread and tray as they worked. When the cookies were finally in the oven, Emily and Grandma sat down at the kitchen table, sipping some tea while they waited. The sweet smell of cookies filled the air, making the whole kitchen feel cozy. After about 15 minutes, Grandma peeked into the oven. "They're turning golden brown. That's how we know they're ready," she said with a proud smile. Emily took a deep breath. "They smell so good, Grandma. Thank you for teaching me all this." Grandma nodded, patting Emily's hand. "Baking is a wonderful way to create something delicious and to share it with the people we love. I'm glad we could do this together." When the cookies had cooled, they each took one and bit into it, savoring the warm, gooey chocolate. Emily was thrilled with the results. They were perfect. In this chapter, Emily learned words related to baking and the kitchen, such as ingredients, mixed dough, and golden brown. Practicing these words while baking made it easier for her to remember, and the experience was a sweet success. Chapter 4: The Neighborhood Picnic. The next weekend, Emily was excited because her neighborhood was hosting a community picnic at the local park. She loved these gatherings because everyone brought food to share, and there were always games and activities for all ages. It was a perfect way to enjoy the outdoors and spend time with friends and neighbors. Emily packed a few homemade cookies from her baking day with Grandma and joined her family as they walked to the park. As they arrived, she noticed several picnic blankets spread out, with baskets and coolers full of delicious treats. "Emily! Over here!" her friend Mia called out, waving to her from a nearby blanket. Emily joined her, happy to see her friends and excited for the day's events. The picnic began with everyone introducing themselves, as there were a few new families who had recently moved into the neighborhood. Emily learned words like neighbor and community, as she listened to each person introduce themselves and share a little about their families. After the introductions, it was time for the first game, a three-legged race. Emily and Mia quickly paired up, tying one of their legs together with a scarf. "Ready, set, go!" the host shouted, and Emily and Mia took off, trying to move in sync without falling. They stumbled a few times, laughing as they struggled to keep their balance, but they managed to make it to the finish line without falling. "Teamwork makes the dream work," Emily said, high-fiving Mia after the race. Next up was the tug-of-war, a game where two teams pull on opposite ends of a thick rope, trying to pull the other team across a line. Emily joined one of the teams, gripping the rope tightly and leaning back with all her strength as they pulled against the other side. "Pull! Pull harder!" Everyone cheered, as each team fought to pull the other. Emily could feel the tension in the rope and the excitement in the air. After a few intense moments, her team won, and they all cheered, proud of their efforts. After the games, it was time to eat. Everyone gathered around the picnic tables, where each family had set out a dish to share. Emily noticed a wide variety of foods, from sandwiches and salads to fruit trays and desserts. She learned new food-related words as she tried different dishes. "Oh, try this pasta salad," Mia said, handing her a plate. "It has tomatoes, cucumbers, and a creamy dressing." Emily took a bite and smiled. "This is delicious. I'll have to ask my mom if we can make this at home." She also tried a slice of watermelon, some fried chicken, and a handful of grapes. Each bite was a new taste adventure, and she felt grateful for the chance to try so many different flavors. As the sun began to set, everyone gathered in a big circle for the final event, story time. Each person was encouraged to share a short story or memory. Emily's dad shared a funny story from his childhood, and Mia's mom talked about a family trip to the beach. When it was Emily's turn, she decided to share her recent baking adventure with her grandma. She talked about making cookies from scratch, learning new words in the kitchen, and how delicious they turned out. Everyone clapped when she finished, and her grandma gave her a warm smile from across the circle. Emily felt proud and happy, surrounded by her community and sharing stories with friends and neighbors. In this chapter, Emily learned words related to community events, games, and foods such as neighbor, teamwork, tug-of-war, and picnic. These words helped her feel more connected to her neighborhood and confident in speaking English in different social settings. Chapter 5: A Day in the Countryside. The following weekend, Emily's family decided to take a trip to the countryside. They packed their bags, grabbed a basket of sandwiches, and set off for a day of exploring nature. Emily was especially excited because she had never been to the countryside before, and she couldn't wait to see the wide-open fields, forests, and animals her parents had told her about. As they drove through the winding roads, Emily gazed out the window, marveling at the beautiful scenery. She saw tall trees, rolling hills, and patches of wildflowers in the fields. "This is amazing," she said, feeling the fresh air through the car window. "We're going to visit a farm today," her mom explained. "We can see how crops are grown and meet some animals too." When they arrived at the farm, Emily could smell the fresh earth and hear the sounds of animals in the distance. The farm was larger than she expected, with fields of corn, rows of fruit trees, and a barn where cows and chickens lived. She felt like she had stepped into a different world. "Let's start by feeding the chickens," her dad suggested. Emily eagerly followed her parents to the chicken coop. Inside, there were dozens of chickens pecking at the ground. The farmer handed Emily a small bucket of feed. "Just toss the grains on the ground, and they'll come to you," he explained. Emily gently tossed the feed onto the ground, and soon the chickens began to gather around her. She laughed as they pecked at the grains, their little feet scratching the dirt. She learned words like coop, feed, peck, and grain, which were all part of the farm vocabulary. After feeding the chickens, the farmer led them to the barn, where Emily met some cows and sheep. The cows were large and friendly, and Emily couldn't resist petting their soft fur. She learned new words like barn, cow, sheep, and fur as she interacted with the animals. "Would you like to help milk the cow?" the farmer asked. "Milk a cow?" Emily asked, surprised but excited. "I've never done that before." The farmer smiled. "It's not as hard as it seems. I'll show you how." Emily carefully followed the farmer's instructions, holding the cow's udder and squeezing gently. To her amazement, milk began to flow into the bucket. "Wow, I did it!" she exclaimed, proud of herself. After a few more hours of exploring the farm, Emily's family sat down for a picnic under a tree, enjoying the sandwiches they had brought. As they ate, they talked about everything they had seen, the animals, the crops, and the hard work that went into running a farm. Emily felt grateful for the experience and proud of the new words she had learned. She realized how much she had enjoyed spending the day in nature, and how important it was to appreciate where food comes from. As the sun began to set, they packed up their things and headed back home. Emily leaned back in her seat, tired but happy, thinking about everything she had learned during the day. I can't wait to tell Grandma about the farm, she thought, already planning her next adventure. In this chapter, Emily learned words related to farm life and nature, such as coop, barn, grain, cow, sheep, and milk. This chapter helped her practice new vocabulary while experiencing a day in the countryside. Emily's journey through different places, from the kitchen to the park and the countryside, has shown how learning English through stories can be both fun and useful. As you follow Emily's adventures, you also get to learn new words that will help you in real-life situations, just like Emily did.
If you enjoyed Emily's story and want to learn more English in a fun and easy way, make sure to subscribe to English 7 Up with IU. By subscribing, you'll get more exciting stories, fun lessons, and tips to boost your vocabulary. Don't miss out, join us today.